We have a second speaker for the day. Gurinder Osen is a photojournalist and a landscape and social documentary photographer. He currently works for Press Trust of India as photo editor, heading and monitoring Pan-India team of many young photographers. His work experience is vast, mentioning few of them starting in the year 1991. I'm pretty sure majority of us are not even born. Indian Express at New Delhi as a staff photographer, Business World magazine, independent photographer for UNICEF and NGOs, Associated Press New Delhi as a staff photographer, Hindustan Times newspaper New Delhi as national photo editor, Press Trust of India New Delhi photo editor. He has done exhaustive and brilliant work at Himalayas, documenting the magical landscapes and hardy people. His work is also exhibited in Endless Horizon exhibition in the year 2000, Echoes from Panchampat Malli 1995, and Traveling exhibition of photographs from SAARC nations in 1992. He also has conducted many 1 day, 2 day, and 7 day workshops related to photography in different parts of the country. Apart from being a core photojournalist and photographer, he's trained mountaineer, trekked the toughest and roughest terrains in the remotest parts of the country. He preferred to travel in his motorcycle in the in the early 90s and late 90s, which was surely a crazy passion back then. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I'll sorry for the delay, the audio
No
patch,
issues, sir.
and we begin now. So,
Yep.
yeah, it is Osan. So it's not a very
Yep.
common second name, so that's cool. And it's Panchpat Malli. Panchpat Malli is a beautiful valley in the Damanjodi area of Koraput district of Odisha. If you haven't been there, you must. It's one of the most beautiful parts of the country. And uh, and there are, from what I hear, there are some very nice homestay options here right now. It's really, really amazing people there. So yeah, I mean, when you mentioned this, I realized that I haven't exhibited post 2000, and it was, we were there are three friends. I'm starting with that because it's age-wise relevant also probably. That in the 90s, the three of us, this is Dinesh Krishnan, who currently heads the Hindu as the visual editor, and my friend who sadly is no more, Pradeep Bhatia. So the three of us used to really like, we would go crazy about going to the mountains, and eventually we migrated to our bikes, which was a Bullet, and we went across the Himalayas as much as we could. And we eventually created a project in those days. And the end result, and that project was to actually travel across India. And we wanted to call it the India document, sort of, documenting India at the cusp of change of the post-liberalization period where the economy was changing and the whole country was set for change. So we realized that it is happening, and we thought we should create a very like vast project of a 6 month kind, costing 35 lakhs in those days. And obviously we didn't get sponsorships, and we eventually landed up only in the Himalayas, and that's where the exhibition was born. But sadly, Pradeep left us. He died as a photojournalist, in fact, in Srinagar. He died in a bomb blast. So that just cut the whole phase that we were on. Our travel suddenly just fell off. And I mean, Dinesh and I haven't done a trip together since. And even we didn't feel like exhibiting, we didn't feel like doing anything. So it just kind of, abruptly cut that momentum. But anyways, like you mentioned, I've gone on to work with the Associated Press after that, with the AP, and spent 10 years there, and then Hindustan Times and PTI right now. I'll start my presentation with my current work as a team leader right now. My task involves that I ensure that everything happens for our huge pan-India presence of subscribers. PTI is India's largest newswire service, and which means that there is a lot of dependence, especially in the smaller towns, smaller newspapers, who almost depend entirely on PTI's content for their output. So in a way, it's a job of amazing responsibility also, and that really engages me like 24/7, morning to night. So which sadly leaves very little scope for shooting, but that's part of the job profile currently. Well, I'm starting the presentation. Hopefully, I can manage that technically now. Is with the work that I have that I'm sharing the work that I've been able to bring about at the PTI in the last 2-3 months only. I'm not going too much into the past. And I just wanted to present, because PTI was earlier considered a government agency. It is actually not. It's actually a private trust, and hence the newspaper owners, the publishers, they are the board members, including others who are like Rajya Sabha members or former MPs and people of public prominence. So that is the PTI board. It's not a government function at all. So, and one of the reasons we were perceived wrongly was the kind of content we were generating, which is very government heavy. We were doing too many ribbon cuttings and lighting the lamp ceremonies, which I banned. The minute I entered, I said I do not want to see a picture of. I don't want to see anything on traditional lamp cutting, lamp ceremonies, and ribbon cuttings, and the typical formal pictures. Even within those situations, how we can think differently to bring about an image that has a relevance news-wise, as well as has an element of surprise. You guys are young and you're entering into this field of photojournalism right now, or into the field of visual communication, I would say right now. The world has really changed. We have become so image oriented in our times now, because everything is on a screen, and a screen needs a visual. You can't show boring text only and expect people to be excited about it. So there is a visual for almost everything that we are sharing right now, and hence the relevance. I'm not saying of photojournalism, I'm not saying of any particular genre, but I'm saying overall, the presence of the importance of visuals is far more important than ever before in our current times. So these are exciting times, and people who are in the business of creating this kind of content uh, have an amazing time ahead, as well as a lot of challenges ahead, because the fact also is that there are so many visual uh, content creators right now, including people who are with their mobile phones, maybe on the street, and maybe shooting only their for fun or for whatever, but they get images that are of huge value. So what I'm saying is that we are in very exciting and very different times. It is a time of, it's a cusp of change also when it comes to visual communication. And I'm not saying that dust has settled yet. I feel that another 5 years maybe we will see a very different sort of way in which we move forward on visual communication. So, but these are exciting times, and we should all be glad to be part of this. Now, these are images that are the first batch of images that I'm sharing are from my team's output in the recent times. We are living in strange situation of this pandemic, and hence the lockdown, and hence the entire turmoil that has happened in our economy, as well as how many lives have been affected. Everybody, like, I mean, and the current pictures I'm showing are how the marginalized or the lesser fortunate have really suffered through all this. So this is an image that is by one of my staff, was Ravi Chaudhary, a brilliant photographer. I mean, all of them are brilliant, so which is why I'm sharing them here. I feel very blessed that wherever I worked, whether at the AP or in the recent years, at the AP or at the Hindustan Times or even now at the PTI, somehow there has been a very good team around me, which has, we have kind of synergized and cross-inspired each other. So that has played a really important role also in ensuring that, that, I mean, I look good, selfishly speaking. This is another image of a child who wasn't too well, and how the parents were taking him across. So a lot of these stories are also, they did differently or interestingly on social media, and this is by Arun Sharma. So a lot of times there was a feedback, and people were showing more interest, and we also revisited some of these families and sort of saw what was how they were faring now. It was not just that we shot and we disappeared. It was not a shoot and scoop job. We actually followed up on a lot of these cases to figure out that we have this image, and it has been a strong image. But what happened later to these people? So this was one of those situations. I don't have the follow-up picture, but it's there on the PTI website, I hope. This is in a way became a very iconic image of this migrant who's, he's from Bihar, and he suffered. I mean, his son was dying, and he couldn't reach him on time. So he's talking to a relative here. One of my colleagues was returning home, Atul Yadav. He spotted him near the Ghaziabad border because the police was stopping him to go further. So he took these pictures, and we later also, because this picture went viral, there was a lot of support that came his way. The protagonist in this picture's way, and people really like poured their hearts out to ensure that his loss of his son and his only son is kind of covered up. So what I'm saying is that, even how we as photojournalists, we just did our job. We went out there I mean, and we all shot pictures, we kind of edited them, we presented them, and then they have their own life after that, which is something that we don't have control of, and which thankfully, and we feel blessed that in a very small way though, we have been able to make a difference. This person is, his name is Chand. Uh, he's Muslim by religion, and he works at a crematorium. His mother suffers from an illness, and he does it only to make some money to ensure that her health is taken care of. Again, this picture also, a lot of people saw it through social media again, and a lot of help poured his way. And you know, this person, the photographer who shot it, Arun Sharma, he feels kind of embarrassed that, you know, this guy calls him up and like thanks him profusely almost on a daily basis. And because a lot of even there is interest in not Bollywood, we don't call that anymore, Hindi film industry, wanting to make a movie on him also. So they were trying to, and also they were trying to raise a fund to help his cause. So a lot of good things can happen through when a process is done in the with the right intention, with the right ways of ethical ways of doing it, with ensuring sort of, you know, the respect for the subject and being truthful, most importantly. Any questions till now? Please ask.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Sir, how to convey people to take their photographs if I want to make a documentary film of their work?
You want to shoot, and you're saying, how do I approach such people?
Yes.
Yeah.
How to approach?
See, how to approach such people. See, the thing is that I will talk about that maybe a little more in detail later. But broadly, it is not my birthright to go and shoot them. Okay. So when I step out with my camera, I have an advantage that I'm unaffected broadly. The people I'm shooting are affected. I have a camera in my hand, which in a way gives me a kind of inside me somewhere. I'm feeling a position of power somewhere, which is wrong. Actually, I have to be at par, if not lower, because, you know, I can shoot because my subject is there. So in a way, I'm servile to the subject, and my relationship is that of dependence, not of power that is higher than the subject. So my approach is that of humility, of complete respect for my subject, and the fact that I'm dependent on that subject. Okay, so with those, if you have that in your mind, in your heart, and then it'll show in your eyes, and that's where the subject will see you, and they will recognize your intent. Now, if your intent is good, if you are there for the right reasons, you will get permission like nobody's business. Everybody will more than welcome you, because it's clear in your eyes that you're not here to do any harm, that you are here for a higher purpose, a purpose that is even higher than you or your ego, right? And it's not exalted because I'm a photographer and I have a camera. It's nothing. It's not for those reasons. It's because, you know, here is something that you truthfully believe has to be done, and you are there as a communicator and doing your small but important bit. So, I mean, what I'm saying in the cusp of the culmination of all this talk is that you have to have the right attitude when you're out there. And like I said, the key words is humility, respect, and dependence on the subject. So you will be surprised how doors open. You know, I've been into situations where I've been told clear, no, you can't shoot. And then I've gone on to shoot an entire series and probably followed up with them also. You know, it's how the trust is built, and how you are also being able to convince that I'm not here just because. I know my job, I know my camera, I'm here for the right reasons, and I'm not here to exploit. And what I'm doing is for the greater good. So, you know, if that all is there, the subject that you're shooting, even if it is an animal, I would say, they will recognize it through your eyes.
So, sir, what do you think makes a powerful photograph, like a photograph that can actually speak for itself?
See, there is no golden rule. There is no, in fact, at a very basic level, there's only one rule in photography, that there are no rules. Okay, so, and that holds true for composition. That holds true for subject choice. So at both objective as well as subjective levels, there is no given formula. It also depends on what you're shooting and the current context. meaning what is it that is affecting people most. So generally our reaction to, like, you are shown 10 images, you will react to 2 of them a little differently from the rest 8. And that those 2 are chosen by your sensory systems because somewhere they feel an empathy for that subject, or there's some connection that you have. There is some somewhere that it gets you, that catches it, that makes it catch you by the scruff, right? So it's in that sense, it's not the image that is doing anything. It is you who are doing it. So the perceiver, the witnesser, is the one who's actually reacting to that image. So now, why I'm telling you all this now, if you see, broaden that context from an individual to a society, how does a picture become popular? It is also to do with how a society is perceiving a certain situation, right? Now, if I show these same images of that person from Bihar who's crying for his dead son, maybe 100 years from now, same image will have an impact, but it won't have the same impact as right now, because right now everybody's feeling the pinch of the lockdown, right? So we will 100 years later we'll have a very different reaction to that image. It will be a strong reaction still, but it will not be the same reaction as today. So what I'm saying is the context matters a lot in how a picture, affects us all. So, like I said, there's no golden formula. And sometimes a very ordinary image. I mean, that image of that boy on a suitcase being dragged by his parents as they walk home. It was from a videograph. Now, if you look at it otherwise, it's a kid feeling tired is sleeping on the suitcase. But the minute you see it in context, it just changes the entire meaning of that image. So, hence it is relative. That's what I'm broadly coming to. That how we react, how a picture becomes viral, how a picture becomes powerful, depends on the individual, and the individual becomes a collective society, or as a whole, how we see these images. Does that answer? I hope it does.
Yes, sir. Sir, I would like to like continue my career into documentary filmmaking and photojournalism. So, do you have any advice for me?
I would, I mean, obviously addressing everybody here. See, we are living in very, in the period of flux when it comes to uh, photojournalism / visual communication. There's a lot of things that are happening. Photographers are having difficulties like everybody else in these days of lockdown, with the economy going the way it is. So this is it's a difficult patch. But what I'm saying is that ultimately the visual communication will hold sway because it is something that is relevant on a screen, and our screen has become our source of information, whether it's a mobile, whether it's a laptop or whatever. So as long as the screen is relevant, imaging is relevant, and as long as imaging is relevant, photographers are relevant. Now, depending on the kind of photography you want to do, whether it's social documentation, whether it's this thing, see, you can never predict uh, how successful you will be. If I was, if I can label myself, if I started on my day one as seeking that, I want to be the photo editor at PTI. No, I wasn't doing that. I was just doing what I know best, to the best of my ability, to the best of my understanding of photography, and just doing it basically. Just go ahead and do it. The fruits that you reap will come your way. If your intention is right, if your approach is right, if you're not doing it at the expense of others, you'll find your way up. And that depends on where you want to head up. And there are so many possibilities. And like I said, I feel like right now is a period of cusp when it comes to visual communication. This dust will settle, and we will see a very your generation especially, I feel we'll see a very amazing time when it comes to digital visual communication. I graduated in 1990, so my time was that of film transitioning into digital cameras. So I've seen that phase from analog to digital. You guys will see how the importance of a visual because of the screen is going to become so much more important in our lives. And maybe it's also the moving image that is the multimedia aspect of also has to be understood equally well when you go ahead as a professional in these days now, because that's what a screen does. It gives you a moving image, it gives you an image, and it also gives you the audio. So I think as students you should invest equally in all of these formats to optimize the future. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Should I carry on?
There's one more guy, Aryan. Do
Sure.
you want to take the question now or probably in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
end?
I don't know about the time. You'll have to monitor my my
That's fine.
timing.
That's fine. Aryan?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that you're a legend, sir, and you have our
Oh my
respect.
God.
I don't really have a doubt. I just wanted you to know that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That's all. I'm done for now.
Cool. So then we'll carry on. Okay, some more images I'm showing of this recent phase. I think I'll do a little bit of a faster slide presentation, not to show any disrespect, but what I'm saying is that we try to cover every aspect of this situation, and we tried every which way possible. The photojournalists have really exposed themselves to a lot of risk in this scenario. Yes, they were prepared. The photographers were wearing the PPE kits for protection. They were taking all the precautions required. But ultimately they are going back home. And for me, it shows such a high level of commitment and dedication to the job that photographers are literally in that pit next to the COVID patient or COVID victim in this case and shooting. So I complete respect and hats off to people who are being. I'm not naming anybody because so many have done this amongst the photographers fraternity right now. So many people have actually risked and gone and shot these images because they thought that it was relevant. Then we try to show the same story in different ways also, how it's affecting everyday people. These are the poor people who are not being able to fend for themselves. They are giving food. So we tried different ways of presenting that content. What is the kind of food that they are getting? We did do a lot of these combos. I'll come back to this later. So this is one combo we created, which was on rush hour in different parts of the city. We released it as a combo, but we also released individual images. This series did quite well, and it showed how at 10 o'clock, the various popular spots in a city are completely empty. This was in April, I think. Oh, no, April, no, May, sorry. May, we did this. Hang on, I'm getting the date. No, I'm not getting the date. It is there. June 4th. We released this on June 4th. So we shot around that time. And this is Monday morning, 10 o'clock. That was the brief that everybody had. So we did it in this way. Another combo, again, we release this individual also, how the discarding of these medical waste is happening. We did many other pictures later also on this subject, but it's a very important one. I'll go back to the one that I missed in between of this lady. She's a illustrator normally by profession. So how people are also switching to different careers because of lack of opportunity. So she's now working from home and supplying to her neighborhood. Normally he would be doing illustration. It's always chaotic when you step out. There's another stronger image that I couldn't fetch on time. That was from Calcutta in the early days of when lockdown was announced. But yeah, the chaos continues even to date. This is a picture that I kept. This is recent. This is where I stay in Gurgaon. Not where I stay, near my house only. But somebody who had shot it and shared it on social media. And thing is that it's very easy for me to say, oh, it's on social media, let me pick it up. But every time it's there, if it's a government handout on a social media platform, a lot of government releases now happen only via social media. But this was a private person putting it, and it kind of started getting popular on, at least in Gurgaon region, of this amazing cloud. So what we did was that I took my wife's help, and she helped me identify the person who had shot this. So we approached him. He was happy to share. We are even took his payment details, and we pay him also for this picture. And what I'm saying is that even when it is from social media, we try and establish the authenticity, the credibility, and the ownership of the image. It's because it is social media doesn't mean we want to own it immediately. So we make as much as possible, make an attempt at honoring the original content creator, because it's an image that we are using for. Though PTI is not for profit, but yeah, we do gain commercially from it. So if I'm gaining commercially, my gain should be shared. It's as simple as that. I'm stepping backwards a little now. This is during the CAA protest in Delhi. So why I've shown this image is that there are this is a it's almost like it is in Syria or Yemen or one of those places where constantly there is bombing happening. Here it's probably the tire market that was gutted, and obviously there was a lot of violence in Delhi in those days. And here is a marriage party heading for like what they thought was important on that date. And so why I'm showing this image is that PTI was not known for such images. And now when I speak to photo editors at the various organizations, they are saying that we have seen a sea change in the way PTI approaches stories. So for me, that's very heartening that we want to change the language of visual communication through PTI, and thankfully it is being accepted. It's not just important for me to egoistically say, okay, this is what I want to give you, take it or like leave it, but also to get a feedback from our subscribers, because we give the entire mix. We give the bread, butter, and this one would be the jam. Yes, we do bread and butter photography, but we lay a lot of emphasis on the jam part. And I'm saying, even as students, when you approach a subject, get your bread and butter shot, but don't miss the jam. This is from Guwahati, the CA protest. So while all of this is on, there's also the other side of the story. And here is during the harvest season, because of the lockdown, the people are affected and there's not enough labor. So there is what I'm saying is there are always so many sides to a story that we should always explore. People who, despite lockdown, work in a very difficult scenarios. Now, why I've kept this image now, this is again shot during the pandemic, is also because there is not enough study that proves otherwise, that people who are working in sewage or are getting exposed to sewage are not likely to get affected by the COVID. Reason being that the COVID patient's stool apparently carries the virus also. So it does land up in a sewage system. So which is why we did this subject again. It's a very photographers prefer to shoot this subject a lot, because it is a very sad thing that happens in our country, that this kind of manual scavenging happens in our sewer lines, and it's ideally it should be mechanized, which now is happening thankfully, probably because of the images that have also gone around so much to expose the way it is so inhuman. And this particular image was, like I said, shot during the COVID pandemic phase, so which is making it even more relevant that the person who's doing it is probably not even aware the risk that he's exposing himself to through this. Again, stepping back a little now, this is just trying to emphasize that the kind of stories that we are trying to approach. This is at the Sambar Lake last year, where due to fertilizers, overuse of fertilizers in the neighborhood areas, the catchment areas of the Sambar Lake, a lot of the birds had died from the exposure to the chemicals in like thousands. Again, a very sad story, but relevant. Again, during the lockdown, there is a monsoon, and it is people who are living right next to the shanties that are built right next to the sea, how they continue to get affected. I should have chosen a better image. There are others that we have of people also standing in their houses trying to protect it against the sea, which during the high tide in monsoons causes a lot of damage. While all this is on, there is other news. And I've taken up this image deliberately. Now, there are a couple of folders that we get from our input, that PTI, and this image was not even chosen. So when I visited this folder, I realized, oh, this is a powerful shot. It's almost like it's almost like it has been staged. It's so cinematic in its brilliance, and but it was lying in the rejects, and I wondered why, and I picked it up, and thankfully it got good play also in the newspapers and magazines and websites, and it is still relevant because this fire is still blowing. July 31st is the deadline for them to extinguish it. Okay, stepping back a little more when different issues were bothering us. This is P. Chidambaram while he was in and out of court. And why I mentioned this picture is that the photographer who shot is Dinesh Joshi. He's still calling me. He's like one person who's always on top, tries to be on top of news. But he's pretty he's pretty elderly. He's like nearly 58 now. But he's so active. And what he would do is, he would always chase the jail van. and he would be jumping up and down with his camera and trying to shoot, and he would yell out, "Anna, Anna." And Chidambaram eventually gave up on him and would eventually smile at him, like, "Lele, take your picture, man." Like, so, but this picture has become kind of iconic to that at that time of the news to Chidambaram's situation. A former minister and all that. I've seen it obviously. Again, a very quiet image, and this is during lockdown of the Srinagar city. But why I'm showing this again is this is not traditionally what PTI was known for, but these images have done well, which is why I've shared them. Similar situations, but again, we are trying different things. And encouraging them, not just doing it, but encouraging them. Always, we are also encouraged because our subscribers are using such content. So there is like what I'm saying is that why I'm saying this is a cusp of change is that there is so much visual communication happening right now, and hence is also visual education that is happening right now. So people who are the decision makers in a newspaper or in a web portal or wherever other place, there is a more awareness of the visual language, and hence there's a different sensibility that, or I would say even more nuanced sensibility that makes people decide on images, the kind of images that people carry. So, and this will only get better, is what I'm saying, because there's so much exposure now to the visual, through visual communication, that it will only get better. The three Gandhis. Okay, I'm jumping now to my pictures. I don't know what is my time. I'll manage my situation accordingly. How much time do I have left?
Director sir, are you there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So how much time? It's showing 40 minutes on the recording. So how much time do I have left?
Sure. Another 15-20 minutes with the questions. So.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So should we take questions now, and then I'll show my work quickly?
We can do it after your.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Okay. I show this image always in my presentations when I'm showing my personal work. Now it's a, so to speak, a simple image. It has been shot in a situation of a bus conductor strike, which hence stalled the buses at Tehri bus stand. And this is in 1988, shot on film, and shot on the, there's in film, whenever you shot like 20 exposures, there was still some left. So you would optimize that by putting it again into your camera and shooting the last 8-10 pictures, whatever you get. So this is one of those tukras that was left of film, and it's over processed, and it's all of that. But this image happened when I was sitting inside the dhaba. I saw these children playing outside. I stepped out, took 6 images. This is probably the first shot that I shot in that 6 images, and I can safely say that all 6 were very nice. And the reason I also show this image is this is in 1988, which is approximately 1 year later than when I first had my camera. What happened is that I did very badly in my board exams, and probably deliberately so, because I just gave up on studies, and I wanted to be a photographer, and I wanted to be in the art college. So I gave my level best to ensure that I cracked the entrance exam. I studied towards how it is done. I visited the college. I made friends there. I figured out the entire examination process. And when the results came, I was checking out my name somewhere, and I couldn't spot it. When I got a kick on my butt from one of the friends that I had made at the college, one of my seniors. Hence, he kicked me in the butt and said, "Oh, kahan dhoond raha hai? Tumne top kiya hai." So I was so shocked. My God, how did that happen? But anyways, that just changed everything. And my father asked me, "What do you want?" I said, "I want a camera, but not now. 1 year later." So, I mean, we were not, I would say, we were not affluent. We were not really rich people. We were lower middle class, I would say. And which is good because it made me realize the value of everything. And I said to my father, I also knew that his hands were, he was not, we didn't have so much flowing. So if I'm asking for a camera, that's equivalent to his monthly, what he makes in a month. So I gave him, I mean, because he asked, I said, I want a camera, but I don't want it now. I want it after 1 year. So 1 year later, I did get the camera, and I was out for a shoot on a trek to a place called Dodital. So we were in Uttarkashi. I was shooting next to the river in the evening, feeling really mighty, great, much geographic, here I come kind of photographer. And when I stepped out, from that boulder near the river water, in the really gushing river water, Bhagirathi River. As I got up to leave, I heard a sound. When I turned back, I saw my camera tumble into the water. And in a jiffy, poof, the water took it away. I tried to grasp it. I could see the neck strap just about entering the water, but I couldn't get it. So I thought I had secured it on my shoulder. I hadn't, and it just fell. So I was obviously heartbroken, more so because I failed my father. I mean, it's something that he took a lot of time to garner for me as a present for what I had done in my art college entrance, but I just in a way fitted it away. So thankfully, I had friends who were very supportive. When I got back to Delhi, they arranged some situations where I could do illustration work for a publisher, one of our friends' father's business. So I started doing illustration for children's books, and that would get me like 30 rupees per illustration, and that would mean 6 hours of work. So in a whole day, I would spend 12 hours making 60 rupees, and a camera in those days would cost about 4,000 with a lens. So through my summer break, I did just that. I made those 60 rupees a day, and by the end of 60 days, I had approximately 2,500 rupees saved up. And 1 week after I came back to Delhi and started doing this work, I told my father that this is what had happened. I told him that I'm very sad that this happened, that I'm ashamed of what I've done, but I will not ask you for money again. And since then, with God's grace, I never had to ask. I will not say it with pride. I'm just saying it with humility that I've never had to ask anybody for money. It just made me more self-answerable. Let's not put it anything else. I mean, I was answerable for my expenses. There's a call coming. I'll just put in the section. And see, every negative situation has a positive side, and I feel that this situation was for a better good only. And when I saw in '88, 1 year after that event, I did step out to shoot. I was so charged to shoot. I was so dying to shoot. So I would say this image, in a way, is a culmination of that entire angst, that entire waiting period of wanting to go out and become a photographer. So hence this picture has a lot of relevance for me. Carrying on. Now these are going a little random. I tried to sequence them partially only, thematically. This image is at Delhi's Kotla Mubarakpur, and how this entire it's politically charged what I'm saying, but there is Islamophobia in our societies. And I got an email from a student in Germany, and she said that this image is this is in 2012. This image is such a respite from everything else that we learn about this religion. So it was, there's so much sort of, I don't know what, maybe joy or whatever you want to say in this image of the same subject that can be so can be represented so differently. This is an older image. I think it's 2007, and there was a medical students protest in Delhi. And the reason I show this image is that sometimes situations don't work your way. I arrived at this protest in the morning, and I had missed the main picture. There was an effigy burning. So I said, oh my God, I missed it. So I waited and nothing happened. And then I left for another assignment. I was working for the AP in those days. And when I came back, I was told a second effigy has been burned. I said, oh my God, what am I doing today? Why am I not getting my pictures? And then I waited till 4 p.m. And then suddenly the students got up and started not walking towards the police barricade, but the other way. And being students, I knew that there was something wrong, and I just ran ahead of them. And sure enough, they spilled to the streets nearby, and they caused a lot of mayhem in terms of traffic disruption and all. And there was police lathi charge, tear gassing, water cannon, the works. So like my entire wait from morning had fructified into this situation where I was like, going crazy with the kind of images that I was getting. I was getting more than what I wanted. And then I stopped. I said, look, hang on, what is the story? That's what I'm coming to. I'm giving all this gyan, is that I'm coming to this part. Like when you are finally out there and there's a lot of things happening before you, you need to stop somewhere and ask yourself, what is it that I really, really want? What is the story? The story here is, these are our students, these are medical students. There are also, in this case, there's a woman student here also who's getting equally water cannoned in a very brutal way. There's lathi charge and tear gassing happening, it's affecting all. So, but there was defiance. And for me, so I just stationed myself under a water cannon and I waited. And I wanted it to be very clear that he's a medical student. So hence, in this image, I got the essence of everything, that they are medical students, that there is defiance, that there is women among these students also who are being equally brutally physically charged at. And but yet there is so much defiance in them, and there's so much sort of the commitment to the cause. So that's why this picture probably became sort of, in those days, it became viral. They interviewed her the next day, and it was on NDTV and all that. You know, parents called from Calcutta to say कि तुम्हें दिल्ली पढ़ने के लिए भेजा था, आप ये सब क्या कर रहे हो? She was kind of embarrassed. Shifting gear to Nepal, thanks to the AP, I've traveled a lot in the subcontinent area. So I've been to Afghanistan, Sri Lanka. There are images on my website that you can see of some of my work there. And this is from Nepal. And you know, we went to this spot because the highway had been blocked by the Maoists, and the trucks that did try to make their way, they were burnt up. And we went to this spot, we shot pictures, and when we were on the way back, we meaning I was the only shooter, the reporter only was with me. On the way back, same place that we had passed just half an hour ago, there was a shooting at by the Maoist, and there was a person lying on the road injured. And he said, "Oh my God, what happened?" Oh, they fired at the bus that was passing by, and these guys got hit. So we immediately put that boy into our car, and we took him towards Kathmandu, got him to hospital. Blah, blah. So, you know, what I'm saying is that when you step out, of course, when you're going into a conflict zone, you go with preparation, you go with understanding, you go with knowledge, but your best preparation can fail. I'm wearing a bulletproof helmet, I'm wearing a bulletproof jacket, but you never know where the bullet will come from. So people often call me and say, I want to be a war photographer. So, you know, that's great, but one should completely understand the entire spectrum of all the risks that are involved also before stepping into anything. And I mean, this is a war situation. There are equal risks in any situation, whether it's a street fight, or whether it's a riot, or whether it's a disaster situation of a natural calamity, or whatever else. So one should be fully aware, conscious of what one is heading into. And if I want to elaborate, though I'm short on time right now, there are these the three ABCs: the awareness of what you're doing, where you're going, what are the risks entailed, and how much are you prepared for. The B is for the backup. What is your plan B? What is it that if something happens, what are you going to do? If there's an explosion, how do you dive? If there's somebody firing at you, where do you hide? Things like that. It's an elaborate subject. I'm not getting into it that right now. And C is for the suppose there is a, getting the full term, I think it's casualty. Oh, no. I'm forgetting the C part, but it's suppose it's a casualty. Then what do you do? Suppose you are affected. Suppose a bullet does hit you. Suppose your colleague is injured. Then what do you do? The C is for that. So the ABCs are very important in any kind of photography, including strife or natural calamities or whatever. So I'm saying make informed choices. That's all I'm alluding to. This is during the Nepal earthquake. And only afterwards, when I was editing the pictures, that I realized that this gentleman had some finger digits missing. So sometimes you don't realize when you're shooting, but he didn't make me think about that at all when he was doing his job. Of, in this case, extracting whatever is extractable from his damaged house. I like to shoot children. This is in Kabul, and even there, you know, I become a kind of the Pied Piper, and somehow children are comfortable with me, and I get different reactions. Another of my images that was at the AP was very celebrated because this is post the Kashmir earthquake in 2006. And I reached there a fortnight later, and this is on day one of my going there. So despite having missed the bus of the main story, I still managed New York Times page one because of this picture, because of, in a way, the subject has been captured. Some people even wrote to me later, somebody made a painting out of this. And in those times, again, like I said, it became, in those words, in that period's equivalent, it became here, like I said about the compassion part of your shooting. Now here is a subject that is I'm shooting the heat, the weather, and the child sitting under the relative cool of a water tanker while the others are out, probably the parents are out there working in the April heat, or is it May? Maybe it's May. And So somebody wrote to me who stays in New York, and she's a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and she said, she saw this picture published, and she sought it. She found out at the AP, and she eventually bought a print and framed it and kept it at her desk. Why? Because it gives her hope. Now, when she wrote to me, only then did I realize that part of the story, that part of the image, that at the time of shooting I didn't think of or feel or realize or whatever. But what I'm saying is that you may do something, and the effect that it has is quite something else. So one should never look at what is the life that my image will take. You do your bit. You do your bit, like I said earlier also. You do your bit as best as you know. Do it with full fidelity, with full respect, with all the ethics in place, and do it right basically. And then leave it, because you never know what is the trajectory your image will take in how it affects people. Now this person in New York is obviously from a very different everything context. So how she reacted was very different from how somebody maybe in Mumbai would react, or somebody in Peru would react, because of their context, because of their lives. I like to share this image because in a way it's an ode to my Guruji of sorts, Raghurai ji. It's kind of shooting that I inspired by his way of the way he frames. I like the way he keeps his frames very busy, and every inch he likes to occupy with something happening. So this is early Gurgaon. I shifted here long back. So all of this is now a very busy market. At that time it was like the it is. During fog in the winter, Delhi winters can be very foggy. I show this image because to me it represents perseverance. I had gone to Bhutan for Hindustan Times and shooting the tiger's nest, Taksang Gumpa as it is called. It's a long hike up, and it was raining that day, and I had reached there towards the evening after something that had happened in the morning. There was a festival and all that. I shot that. I wanted to shoot pictures here. I went there, but there was nobody here. There was no pilgrims that I wanted along. But I heard that a family had gone in, and if they have gone in, they have to come out because you're not allowed to stay there. So I waited, and it started raining. So I waited for nearly 1 hour, and the rain did subside, and this family did eventually come out. And eventually, when they came till here, I shot them. I mean, they were okay with me shooting. Eventually, I accompanied them down, and started raining again. So whatever waterproofs I had, I gave it because there were children with them also. So it became a very nice situation of that in a way a symbiotic one, in which I have taken pictures of them, but I've given back something. This word taking pictures is a very loaded one. When you're taking, you can't just take. It has to be two ways. So in my simple small way, I shared, if there was rain protection that I had, I gave it to them. The children had my camera bags, a rain cover on top of their head, or somebody else had something else. So like that, all of us walked down, and then we also shared conversation. So it was nice. This is another example of perseverance. I waited half an hour to get this composition right. It seems like a simple picture, but it is not actually. I identified the canvas, meaning the other parts of the canvas, but I wanted the human silhouettes to be the way they are in a certain way. And to be honest, I waited half an hour for this picture. Here is a situation in Sri Lanka. There are more pictures. You can see it on my website also, on the Sri Lankan Strife. This is in Colombo. I reached there to shoot, I thought, sports, because there was a cricket tri-series happening between India and Sri Lanka and South Africa. And there's also the SAF Games, South Asian Federation Games, happening later that month. This is in August 2000. The date, but 2006 probably. And my wife called me in between once, and she asked me, "Where are you?" I said, "No, in Sri Lanka." "No, but where exactly are you?" And I was in Trincomalee in those days. If you see my images on my website, you'll realize what I was shooting. I was actually shooting the civil war there, and the LTT were in a place called Muttur, and they were firing at Trincomalee constantly. There was firing happening from Trincomalee side. I mean, there was a 16-barrel rocket launcher right next to a hospital that I was shooting in, and there were injured people coming there every day. So it was it was a difficult situation. And when my wife asked me, "Where are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm in Sri Lanka." So like, nice harbors, green area, beautiful beaches, none of that. So she went down to the AP website and realized that I was shooting the war. Hence she got so worried after that. But God has been kind. One has never suffered. any injury of any kind in all of these situations. So now here is a situation of a bomb blast where the pellets are all steel balls that are placed in a claymore mine. And when it explodes, it goes boom out and it rips everything in its path. So those walls that you're seeing peppered with holes is from all that shrapnel. It goes right to the steel of the car. It goes right to people, etc. Many people died here, of course. And, so I mean that is how it is. That is how ugly any strike situation can be. I've kept this image as a representation of what we feel is our right. Now, here is a subject of shot this for Sun Times, shot of the pictures of patients at a mental hospital. I'm just getting some water as I speak. Now, when you're shooting a subject like this, you need permissions because you're shooting somebody who doesn't know that what is the purpose of the image or how it will affect their future. Like when you're shooting children, or you're shooting somebody who's not in a position to make a decision of whether the situation is right or wrong for them, then you don't have the right to just go and shoot. So in this case, it's a person who's mentally challenged, and he or she may not remain in that state forever. So tomorrow, if they are cured, there should be no stigma against them having been in a biological condition or a medical condition that in this case entailed mental illness. So, but we had the permissions, like I said, the director of NIMHANS was with us through this entire shooting. He was helping us, and we had the permissions from the guardians of these people. But yet I told myself that as a photographer, I told myself that, do I need to show them? Maybe not. If you see the rest of my series, it's on my website also. I have deliberately not included their identities in my images. I had the permissions to, but I deliberately chose it as a challenge to myself as a visual communicator. How can I show it minus all of that, and how can I still represent the efficacy of my story should still be strong enough for it to register in people's psyche. I mean, the story did relatively well, I would say, for the Sun Times, because this is such a subject that is, mental illness can be as easily cured as a common cold, or not common cold is the wrong example, or any other flu, except that we treat it with so much stigma and all the mythologic, all the wrong things that we do of, that it is a ghost or it is this or that, we associate too much demon to it more than medical facts. So our story was about that it's a medical condition and hence can be treated medically also. Anyways, you can see it on my website. I've given the link of the story also on the website. Again, here is a picture. One of the points that I wanted to say. Okay, let me get to my list, and because I also need to wrap up. We are on more than an hour now. So I've mentioned in my list, since I didn't have so much time, I had very few points. Already mentioned a few. Let me jump to the one important part that I think we should all note down is the neutrality that when you approach your subjects, of having a neutral position in your views. We all come with certain political opinions. We all come with certain psychological biases. We all come with a certain history of what we've experienced in our lives. Of course, it will weigh on us when we are composing, when we're choosing our moment or choosing our subject. Of course, it will happen, but we should not allow it to overwhelm us. We have to, as journalists especially, we have to stay in a position of neutrality, that it can be both sides. We need to always represent both sides. We need to give benefit of doubt. So being neutral is very, very important. Another important part, some people call it being the fly on the wall. There are other terms to describe it. But the basic point is that as photographers, we are documenting history, we're not creating it, especially as photojournalists. So if I'm a concept photographer, fine, then that's how I'm doing it. If I'm an artist, fine, I'm doing it like that. As a fashion photographer, as a wedding photographer, fine, I'm doing that. But as a photojournalist, I cannot give myself that privilege. I do not create content. I document what is there. I do not create history, I record history. Now I'm coming to this image and everything else. So, this is, I say that a picture is 1,000 words. It is important to choose what are those 1,000 words also. Because we have, in a way, you have only 1,000 words, right? So what are those 1,000 words and how do you configure them as part of your visual poetry or whatever else you want to describe it? So that is one part. The other part is that, you do your homework right. in this picture, Arun Shawry's portrait, it is a portrait, right? It's about a person who's of a certain political ideology and has an influence on society in the way he thinks. So, I mean, he's a very interesting person. And but so I did before I went to his shoot. I read up about what he's doing currently, and so I've set up the lights and all that, and we're about to shoot. And my colleague was standing next to me. She had come because she wanted to see how it is done. And so Arun Shawry started talking to her. And I told Richa, my colleague, just engage him and I'll try and get some national moments. So the question wasn't from her, sadly, that day. And it came from Arun Shawry. And he asked Richard, what do you do, Richard? And she started explaining, oh, I'm the photo desk editor at sometimes, and I do this and I do that. And I could see Arun Shawry's face like go wild. It was not what he wanted to hear, meaning that it was a subject that didn't excite him at all. He asked out of politeness. And because I had done my homework, because I had done my research, I saw it happening and I immediately turned the conversation towards Arun Shawry himself and asked him, sir, how is that book that you're doing? I think it was on spirituality. How is that book coming along? And the minute I said that, his face lit up because he realized that here is somebody who's asking me about me. Suddenly he became the most important part of that, of the dynamics of that situation. And his eyes lit up. He had a smile on his face. He started talking very animatedly about his current project. Here is somebody who knows about it and is talking about it. So it just changed everything. And after that, he was completely swayed in our direction. And his son is also challenged. And 40-year-old, but as old parents, they take care of him. He got his son down from the first floor and even posed with him later. So, I mean, all of that happened thanks to that one first question, which was thanks to good research or doing my homework. So when you do your homework, the subject in front of you also appreciates that you're not there to waste their time. Being prepared is very, very important. Whether it is being prepared professionally in the sense of, not professionally, I would say as a cameraman or camera person rather, you know your equipment, you know what you're going to do. You're going to ask for 5 minutes and finish in 5 minutes because you know exactly what is to be done. You're not there to waste somebody else's time, right? So that level of preparation, that level of doing your research is very important. Second part is knowing your subject also. So when there is that moment of a nuanced moment of surprise that you can initiate, you should know how to do it because you've done your homework, right? Okay, so moving on. Wrap up faster now. I'm pretty late, I'm sure. See, this picture is shot at the line of control on the Pakistan border. I did go towards the other side also. I've not included that picture here. It's on my website. Again, you can see it. The story on the entire scenario of how the troops are faring thanks to the bombardment from the other side and how they're doing it with a smile on their face. So amazing people who actually work on the border there. Is like full respect for not just the military but also for the civilians who managed to uphold against such adversity. So here is a man who mans a post, which is a gate towards towards the line of control. This is the fence, the international. So not it's the fencing that we have done. It's illuminated by LED lighting, and it's our barricade against potential ingress. And here is a man who has this lonely duty of manning that gate. But like everything else, they do it with a smile on their face. There is another picture. I thought I had not kept it. This is interesting because there's a moon in this picture. There is a LED fencing lighting that is happening, and I'm also using my cell phone's torch to illuminate the subject. I didn't want to fire a flash, so I was carrying one. I mean, we're not very far from Pakistan side of their firing situation. They're firing bunkers, and if I used a flash, I may just attract more than required attention. So I just used the torch of the iPhone that I had, and it was enough to illuminate the subject because I was shooting on a very high ISO in any case. So in the end, it all worked out. It had the nocturnal feel, it had the moon, it had the LED lights of the fencing, and it had my subject illumination. I showed one earthquake picture earlier of Nepal, and because again I'm talking about knowledge now, because I had I've been to this place fairly often. I was aware that there are these postcards that showed these structures as they existed before the earthquake hit. So many historical heritage structures got knocked down by the earthquake. They're still rebuilding them. Not all of them are complete even till date. And so the minute the markets opened in Thamel, because I was aware of it, I immediately went in. On day one, I purchased the postcards that depicted the place in their former glory. And I went back to the same spot at the same, possibly the same time of the day, and keeping the same perspective and trying to keep the same subject also, in terms of if there are people walking across, there should be people walking across in that frame, and try to show how it was before and after. Again, this is a subject, I mean, this did very well on Hindustan Times online portal. But what I'm saying is, because of knowledge, this picture was achieved, because I was aware of the possibility that out of nowhere a possibility was created. Here is a picture. You know, people often talk about equipment. I had a camera which was very slow in its response. It is the Canon. I shouldn't have mentioned the brand, anyways, but it's a slower camera. When you press the shutter, it could take a little longer to finally click. So what happened? I mean, what I'm thinking is the problem can be a virtue sometimes. Here is a situation where this gentleman jumped, and I clicked. But by the time my camera actually opened the shutter, this person was exactly where he should be. And that's how exactly I would have wanted to shoot. And so I got this picture thanks to the lag in the camera, not because of me. So I mean, this picture did win some awards and all that. But it was possible because of, in this case, the camera worked. Again, a situation of perseverance. It was a situation where Rahul Dravid was giving a press conference. We were getting very boring pictures. I was carrying all my equipment, you know. I was carrying 300mm 2.8, which is a heavy lens, carrying two camera bodies with the other lenses. I was carrying a laptop with a charger, all of that in my rucksack. And I mean, I'm all prepared and not getting a picture. And I said, let me try something else. So when Rahul Dravid stepped out of the press conference situation, this was in Sri Lanka. He stepped out of the press conference and he realized that he's not going back to his room. In fact, he's heading outwards. And I realized that on the street there was Bhajji and others waiting for him, and they gestured to him like, come. So they went across and they all started jogging along the beach there, Golf Face Beach as it is called. And I ran with them literally. There was another photographer colleague from Deccan Chronicle. We both, and mind you, I told you about my equipment details because I was carrying all that on my shoulders. I was fully loaded, and a 300mm also 2.8 in my backpack. And here I was again trying to run and matching the prowess of athletes here. And obviously I couldn't. And I ran till about 300 meters and I gave up. And then I just stopped and I said, okay, what goes up must come down. So they will eventually return. So I finally got better pitches when they were running back. And this did get good play. It's also in a way historical because these are legends. Yeah, I think that's my last. Yep. What I have not covered as of now is, like, you know, like I said, these are times where there's too much happening. Visually, you're too much exposed to a lot of visuals all around you. So now, as photographers, as visual communicators, how do you stand apart? You know, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people now with cameras out there. So you are at the cusp of, you know, getting into this genre. So how do you now distinguish yourself from the crowd? So you need to be very informed about your choices. You need to be very smart about your choices also. You're lucky, I would say you're blessed that you are going through a situation of being a student of this stream. And while you are a student, there is so much that you can grab. I'm just saying that soak it up like a sponge as much as possible. Become a big sponge. Just absorb as much as you can in terms of knowledge and in terms of understanding of everything. It's not just about, for example, Steve Jobs attended a calligraphy class and realized how to make better fonts. You know, so you never know where the lesson comes from. So I'm just saying that be aware of everything around you. Delve into everything possible. It's not just about technique, it's also about so many subjective things that you should be fully aware of. And like this phase of your life, make every minute count, every second count actually. So another thing is that in the end, you know, because there's so much of a glut of visuals around us, we need to be very clear how we stand apart. What is the element of surprise that we bring in that can make us stand apart. So we need to surprise not just our subjects, we need to surprise ourselves also. So be be creative, be thinking in every which way possible. Don't go into any kind of this is how it is done. So there's no formula, there's no magic situation. There's no such thing. Now is the time, especially now is the time when people want surprises. And like as creative people, I think we have a great advantage to be able to deliver that. So always look out for how you can show the same subject differently and make it stand apart, make it a surprise for the subject as well as you. I think you firstly, you should be surprised about what you have done. Every day when you return, you should be saying, "Wow, man, I didn't think like this yesterday. Today I'm thinking differently." Let it be a step up every day. Yeah, that's it. I've spoken too much.
Thank you so much, sir. Nandan Biswal, you have raised your hand. Do you have any questions? Nandan Biswal. All right. So anyone else has any questions to discuss?
So we don't have questions for two reasons. Okay, I'll finish with that. Either you didn't understand anything or you understood everything very well. So it's one of these two situations.
Yeah. So we hope it's the second reason that everyone understood everything well.
Great.
Director sir, you want to say something?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, thank you very much, Govinda sir. And you know, you showed a photograph which was inspired by Raghu Rai sir, and which also refreshed my memory of him when I went to meet him for a I wanted to do an internship with him or do a project with him in early 2000s when he was working on a book, and it was on Maestros of India. I think you must be remembering that. There's a book. So he was working on the idea, and he was like sitting with his assistants in his Delhi office, very close to no, yeah, correct. So he was like, okay, you show me your work, and then then we had a good chat, and then he showed me his photographs. He was like, okay, look at my photos, and just tell me what do you think of them and things like that. I was of course a young guy, and we had a small debate on abstract photography, and then I learned that how important it is to basically understand your skill and not to fool yourself, uh, and straight to true to your art, and also a good human being. Like how important it is to stay a human, just to understand you're a human being at the end of the day. So, which was very important, uh, and you said something very interesting, which was that you're not creating the world, or you're not creating this is something that which will probably change, but you are documenting it.
Right.
So which is very important point, which means that yes, there is subjectivity, but you're not trying to uh, really create your own world that you have in your mind,
Right.
about an event or about an issue. So I just had these points to make actually. And so your setup really reminds me of my old home in Haryana. I'm from Haryana, and the ceiling, that especially the ceiling, the roof ceiling, reminds me of that.
Yeah, this is a studio. We kind of made it because my wife is also from the art college. We created this as a studio to, and my work from home happens here now. So this is our first floor. It's kind of quiet here. Just behind me, in fact, behind the laptop, there is a enlarger right now. So this is there. I am making wind chimes, which are also hanging at the back right now. So this is a creative zone for me.
Right. Because this, I'm sure like old houses in North India, at least. I don't know about South India, but in North India, we used to have these, rooms with just one or two wooden, planks, and the whole thing stand on it and stuff like that. So very, So thank you, Virendra sir, first of all, for
thank you so much.
Time, and inspiring our students, young ones, of course, fresh out of 12th standard, and that might not have a few things because you get those experience. But really important that we had a chat, where we had your session today. So
Thank you.
thank you very much, sir. And I really hope one of your students, please, if you have anything to ask, it's not really easy to catch one of great men like him. So
I'm not great.
great, photographers and artists like him. So please, if there's anything, please ask.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, sir. I would like to ask, how should we approach and subject during a natural disaster or a war? Because people are more distressed at that time.
Okay, if you see if I can dig that up, I'll try and get that on my screen. Let me see if I can share that particular screen. 1 second. This is on my website again, so people are welcome to see it. This is the tsunami. It's a situation of natural disaster. And I'm skipping to this image, and the image on the top right. So these are all very disturbing, obviously, images, and there's strong visuals, but this is a story that is of this nature. But what I'm coming is that
बॉस की तो हर कोई सुनता है बॉस तो कहने को 10 लाख करा और 10 लाख भी करा देते हैं हम तो नॉर्मल एम्प्लॉय है तो हमारी 1.5 लाख ही सुन लो सर बताओ सर ये यार बताओ कौन कैसे बनवाओ आज आपका डीडी कटवाओ बताओ डीडी बनवाओ या आपको क्या बनाओ बताओ सर नहीं सर आपके ऑनलाइन पेमेंट ही करा देंगे
Shobh, can you just mute your mic?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Sorry sir, for the disturbance.
Yeah. No issues. Business as usual. So now here is a situation where a lot of dead bodies are being piled into this pit. Okay, now this is the whole village is gathered. The people who have survived, and there are a lot of like we saw in the subsequent pictures. Also, there are a lot of children also who have died in this tragedy. And if you look at this again, like I said, the top right picture. Now here is me also standing inside that pit. Now it's in Tamil Nadu. This place is Kadalur, and I don't know the language, and I am inside that pit. Okay, and there is earth below me, but possibly there are more dead bodies below me also because it's a huge pit. Like multiples of layers of bodies were being lined up inside this. Now it's who gave me the permission to be there? Some people may ask. That permission was given to me by the people there. How did they give that permission? How did they give me that permission? From the look in my eyes. Okay, when I'm shooting a subject like this, what is my body language? What is my thinking? What is the bhav in Hindi? What is the bhav in my mind? What is it there in my mind and heart? That and that's, like I said, showing in my eyes. Am I equally affected, or am I there like I'm observing an animal in a zoo? Where am I? How much involved I am with their grief? How much is it affecting me also? So if it is not, it will show in my eyes, and I will be rejected. I'll be thrown out. But if I'm nearly crying, like I was in this situation with them, then I'm one of them. Then my permissions are coming because of the communication happening through our eyes. Okay, like I said, I don't know the Tamil language. Even if they said something, I couldn't make out. They were hardly being able to say anything. They were also shocked. But this is one day after the tsunami hit. So, but yet I was inside and I was shooting these pictures. And there was again, like I said, it's there in the eyes. I mean, coming back to the eyes example, I'll quote one. Raghunar Raiji's influence on me. I call him a guru, though he didn't formally ever guide me. I was always been more through seeing his work and those occasional bits that he would share during any meeting that I would have with him, especially as a younger photographer. I met him when I was in third year college. I'd gone to Khajuraho. I was shooting in the Khajuraho village for a book project in those days on artisans. And I was very scared. I had kept my camera inside. I didn't want to, was reluctant that, what will the villagers say? There are women in this village. What will they say when they see the camera? Will they see that I'm doing something wrong here? I don't know how it will be perceived. I have all these questions in my head. I'm third year college, remember? Something similar to your situation right now. But I was too shy, or I was too, I would say, naive. And my camera stayed inside my bag. And though I was there for the right reasons, I mean, I was not there just like that. I was there for a purpose. In this case, it was to shoot artisans and in their natural environment. That was the project. And I saw Raghurai coming down the street. And he was in Khajuraho also. He was shooting several projects in those days, including the Khajuraho book that he did eventually, and the Kirkir bird. You must see that if you haven't. It's about the Saras crane that he shot in Khajuraho. So I went up to him and said, sir, I'm also from Delhi. So he looked at me and smiled and said, yeah, what a beautiful village now. And he carried on. And in his flamboyant self that he is always, he had 2 or 3 cameras. He had a kind of a shawl around his neck. And it was winters, December it was. And he was happy. He was comfortable. He said, look, I'm shooting. And nobody had any objection. And I had the courage to bring out my camera eventually after seeing him. And then later, same morning, I was shooting these potters who were kneading the clay. So they were standing in a big pit of clay and they were doing it with their legs. They were composing the clay with water and clay. And very nearby, like 10 feet away from that situation, there was a woman taking a bath. She was semi-clad. She didn't have anything on top. She was there with her child, and I said, oh my God, here is a village situation of a woman who's nearly nude, and here I'm shooting, and I know that I'm not shooting her, but do these people know that I don't have the wrong intent? And all my, young hormones kicking and all that, and I'm trying very hard to concentrate on what I'm supposed to do and not look guilty about what I'm doing. And till I heard a sound of cameras clicking, and I turned and I saw Raghurai there. He had come on a rickshaw there. He was just getting off, and as he got off, he started shooting this lady, and she was smiling at him. She had a child, like I said, and she held up the child and was posing for him also. And he shot. And when I saw his eyes, he was actually interacting with her. He had this look in his eyes that said that, I'm a photographer. These are my cameras. Do I have your permission to shoot? She says, yes, with her eyes again. And he's shooting. And they're both fine. So it was me in my head or my warpedness that stopped me, or stalled me. And that is a lesson that I learned from Raghurai. It is the look in your eyes that will always, like I said earlier also, will give you the permissions. Whether it is a simple situation like this village situation, whether it is a strife situation, whether it is a natural calamity situation, any situation, you will get your access if you're clear about your purpose, if you're clear about your intent, and if you're professional about how you go about yourselves. So I think that's it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir.
So all the best, guys.
Thank you so much, sir, for coming and giving us a valuable time.
Sure.
I hope you had a good time too.
Sure. Thank you so much for allowing me.